Hello again, and welcome to Survive and Thrive, your media viability podcast. We all know how hard it is to run a media organization. There's the money side, there's the editorial work involved, the personnel dimension, and so on. And that's why we have this podcast to help understand what media managers can learn from one another in our mutual quest to survive as media organizations. And dare we say it, even to thrive. I'm Janelle de Malaon. Our next guest knows what it's like to deal with the baseline challenges of having a media operation, but also trying something new on top, providing web and digital services within the operation that helps to finance the journalism they do. I'd like to welcome Malek Khadhraoui. He is the executive director of AlKhatt, a nonprofit organization which provides services for journalistic content, and the publication director of Intifada, the media outlet run by AlKhatt, a Tunisian magazine dedicated to investigative and long-form journalism. Hello, Malek.
Hello.
We'll talk more about AlKhatt and Intifada in a moment, but first we have a short round of introductory questions for you. So we're looking for quick answers, so let's keep it rolling. Your business model in a catchphrase.
I will say services and products, project management, and grants.
Services, products, what was it? Management and grants.
Yeah.
Did you ever manage a moment when everything seemed lost?
Yeah, I think during the COVID pandemic, I'm sure I'm not the only one. We had a lot of our services stop very in a fraction of time as everything was closing, and we was just investing in a physical place when entrepreneur, media journalist, and media outlet can have like a place to stay. And it was a very hard moment. We lost 30% of our revenue this year, and it was a quite stressful moment for the organization.
So the world stopped at the moment of the COVID pandemic, and for a while it felt like your world did too. Yeah, I guess that was a common feeling. Next question, what would you need to thrive in the future?
I think that we need to sustain the business model, continue finding new revenue streams and new ways to sustain the editorial production, but also the independency from the economic actors, from the political side. Tunisia is facing also a very challenging moment in terms of civic liberties, and the place of journalism are shrinking every day. So it's also a big challenge for Intifada specifically.
So in terms of finding new revenue streams and making sure you're actually able to survive in the difficult environment that Tunisia now provides. All right, so let's get into it. Malek, you've made state-of-the-art storytelling your mission. What does that mean exactly? And this time, the introductory round is over, so you can get into depth.
Yeah, so from the beginning, in the DNA of the Intifada project was this idea to prove in a way that we can, in our context, provide high quality journalism, fitting the standards, also bring some innovation on how to tell stories and how to produce stories online, and make this experience of reading very long stories, long in-depth investigative pieces, which are generally not very appealing in terms of visuals, in terms of experience. So the idea from the beginning was really to bring a new way to tell stories. I think the name even of the media outlet was inspired by this idea. Intifada is a contraction between ink and intifada. Intifada in Arabic means uprising. And the idea is, we want to revolutionize very humbly the how we telling story in the age of internet with a strong connection to the basics of journalism, which is represented by ink, the printing era. So this is the first idea from Intifada. The second maybe idea is also to have an only fact-based journalism in a context where opinion are dominant in the media landscape. Experts who are not really expert giving their thoughts on everything. The idea is to say, let's just stick to facts, to data, and trying to tell the story this way. The objective of this was to give readers and citizens the best keys to understand what's happening, especially in a specific Tunisian context where Tunisia was living a democratic transition, going out from decades of dictatorship, and the media landscape was really poor in terms of fact-based journalism. So there is like a need for this kind of journalism.
Now, maybe you can talk a bit about how the idea for AlKhatt and Intifada came into being. As you already mentioned, it arose in a very specific context of democratic transition following the Arab Spring uprisings. So can you tell us a little bit about what gave you the idea to start a media organization at that time?
Personally, I was involved since 2000 in the Tunisian media landscape, from the diaspora before 2011 and after 2011 in Tunisia. I was part of a project who was giving space to all the democratic forces fighting the dictator Ben Ali to express themselves, to discuss democracy, the state of the society, what kind of action we should do during this period. We was also very present in the period of the uprising itself, bringing images and story from what happened in Tunisia during the period between the 17th of December and the 14th of January, the period of the uprising. Kept very contextualized materials coming from the ground, which help a lot of international media outlets having like reliable, fact-checked videos and information coming from the ground, as the Tunisian media was completely blacking out all the information coming from the ground during this period. So I was already in this reflection on how to provide the Tunisian citizens a good quality, at least in information about what happened in the country. But a big part of this project that I was part of was to give a space for opinions to express themselves, as there is zero space for this kind of expression. After 2011, I think everybody has the capacity in Tunisia to express itself through social media. The censorship was completely shut down. The internet was free again in the country. And the reflection was, do we need, as a media outlet, to continue having our main focus on providing a free speech space for people to express themselves? Or maybe this period people need more information and more fact about what's happening, the changes, the impact of all this big change in the Tunisian society. Also, what happened in the parliament, what happened in the writing of the new constitution, what happening in the political scene when people are discovering the dissident who were in the diaspora, who were abroad, and a lot of people didn't even know the existence of this political ecosystem who was fighting the dictatorship. So the idea is to say, I think this period in 2012, 2013, we needed more facts than opinions. And this is how we left with a few people from my ancient team to fund Intifada with this specific objective of providing this fact-based journalism. This is the idea from the beginning.
So it was a mix of kind of returning the practice of journalistic discourse to society, but also developing a base of well-informed news consumers. So you mentioned a little bit about your business model on top, and I would like to hear a little bit more about that as well. So what is the difference between AlKhatt and Intifada, and where do they overlap?
Yeah, so AlKhatt is the mother structure who is the publisher of Intifada. The idea is, as from the beginning, when we thought about the business model, we already had in mind developing some services, side services or transactional business model. But in the same time, we know that it will be not covering the whole cost of the operations. And from the beginning, also, we thought of some core fund looking for some donors. But we didn't want to have a direct connection between the media outlet itself and the donors. So AlKhatt plays this in-between interface between the editorial independency of AlKhatt, which is 100% funded by the editorial independence of Intifada, who is 100% funded by AlKhatt, and AlKhatt to go and bring some money and to contract with the donors eventually. So the idea is really to separate the editorial independency and the grant making with AlKhatt. AlKhatt also has advocacy purposes, fighting for a better environment for journalism, advocating for the change on the law, the creating more skills and also more rights for journalists in Tunisia. And I think the advocacy part of the work is not suitable with the mission of a media outlet also. So the separation comes also from this idea to have a very distinct operations between the editorial and the production of content and the advocacy work, but also the relationship with donors eventually to fund the business.
And there is also that the portion that's dedicated to providing web and digital services to other organizations. So this external service arm of
so this work. Is absolutely this is the other pillar in a way of the business model, which is also related to the specific context of Intifada and the creation of Intifada. The media from the beginning, from the founders of the media, we had one of the associates was a computer engineer. We have also an artistic director, a designer, who came from the world of the advertising, but he was really interested on developing his skills in the world of the editorial production. So we had the skills, at least the basic skills from the beginning, to have different kind of skills in the organization, and not only based on the editorial side and the journalistic side, but also all the people that we need in a modern newsroom to create this content. The idea also is not to create a separation between the technical side and the editorial side. Designers and the developers was part of the editorial meeting, part of the newsroom, and they have also they word to say about how to tell the story, how to make it appealing. And I think it's created a culture, an internal culture, and how journalists can work with the other and people involved in the content production. In opposition to the classical model where you have a plateau with the journalist and people who are doing the technical stuff are in another room, in another floor of the organization, and not involved in the editorial process. So this is the beginning of the idea. And we discovered very, very quickly that people are reaching out to say, we love this piece, we love how you realize this piece, we love this illustration or this interaction. Can you tell us who is your service provider? We wanted to have this kind of stuff, and we said, this is internal. We can help you doing that. It started like this, and so we start helping other organizations having better infrastructure, better website, help them to realize some stories. And then some of our donors, some of our partners come to us to say, we love your work. Can you help other people that we are supporting maybe reach this kind of skills, know to do data or how to do investigative journalism this way, or how to tell in-depth stories? Can you make like some training for them? And we start developing some training curriculum for journalists, media organizations, similar media organization to us. And step by step, we discovered that there is a bench of skills, internal skills, that they have market value in a way. They can be packaged and sell to other media organization or even media support or development organization. And from the first year, we generated 20% of our need from those services. So we was very happy about the idea. And from then, we started developing this bunch of services that we are offering. And later, the 2 or 3 last years, we start working on packaging some of those services in products. As for example, we developed medium audience measurement tool for our needs. For the beginning, we implemented in some media outlet, and there is a very good feedback in terms of the fact that it was very useful for them to understand the audience. So we now packaged this product, and we are now selling it as a SaaS service, a model based on a monthly subscription to access to the service. We also developed an advanced no-code CMS, content management system for media outlet who wanted to develop rich content, introducing multimedia elements with their stories. It's called InCube. And we also started selling it to some of our partners and media outlets. So the idea is every time we provide a service, we try to see what kind of component from the service we can package and sell it as a product that other people can use. As an example, we developed a platform to monitor the parliamentary work in Tunisia in association with a local NGO called El-Bawsala. And we package this CMS for media, for organizations who work on parliamentary observation. And now we can decline it and adapt it to the specific context of each country. We sell it in Lebanon, for example. We are discussing with a Senegalese NGO also to adapt it to the Senegalese context, which is provide revenue for us, but also contribute in a way to the business model itself and our mission in terms of providing tools to NGOs and media outlets who has a mission in the specific context.
Aren't you afraid in some way, though, of giving away your competitive advantage the way I understand it, you develop sort of in-house tools to make your own work better, right? So when you sell it to others, aren't you afraid of giving the competitors a leg up that perhaps you could have retained for yourself?
I don't think so, because we are a mission-driven organization. We have also in mind that we have this role in the ecosystem to help other organizations with a mission, based on the mission, the tools, the tools that they needed. And for example, for the audience measurement tool, it comes from the idea that the best ones are so expensive for this kind of organization, for the small and mid-size organization. So they have to stick with Google Analytics, with a very broad, not specific tools for media outlet. But the best ones are very expensive, and they are used by the big organization. The idea is to create a tool that it can be affordable, bringing the same kind of value than a very expensive tool. So I think that it's part also of the mission of Intifada and AlKhatt to play as a positive actor in the ecosystem, providing affordable tool assistance to similar organization in the region.
Interesting. So I also wanted to know, so what are kind of the challenges in running essentially different kinds of operations together? Like, I can imagine that, for example, presents challenges with recruitment. You need journalists, but you also need highly skilled design, creative, and web engineering teams, for example.
Yeah, I think this is one of the biggest challenge of such a business model, is to create a synergy between different kind of worlds in a way. The editorial world is completely different from the engineering world, is completely different from the design. Even the timeline of how they produce is completely different. So we have at least 3 different mindsets that we need to bring together to produce one piece of content. I think that we was lucky from the beginning, as the co-founders has already this internal skills. It wasn't a journalist who's going to hire an engineer. It is an engineer working in a media outlet hiring other engineers. So the culture, we have already at least people who already believe in this mission internally, and everyone has the mission to create his own lab in a way, his own team, and the team, we build it like this, build it based on, this is our mission. It needs technology, for example, but the technology has to serve this purpose. And it was a long process to achieve this balance between different culture. Also, there is this idea of the activity that they bring revenue, serving the newsroom, who don't have this first mission to bring revenue. The first mission of the newsroom is continue producing content. So it has also to make sense for the department who is generating the most part of the revenue to say we are contributing to a bigger or a higher purpose in a way. Because there is, as we are a non-profit organization, the idea is that it will never be a profit mindset in a way in the lab or in the other department of the structure. So there is a very important cultural change or cultural aspect to look for. That is the first thing. Also, the media ecosystem is not very appealing for engineers, for example. They are not. It's not their first choice to go work in a media outlet. They want to be in the technological structures because it helps them increase their skills, learn new technologies and new stuff. And the fact that we also produce technology was like an argument to bring new talent to the structure. Another idea, another point I think is very important is also to be able to implement this internal culture. We decided to more invest in very young but talented engineers. Sometimes even we recruit them before even they finish their degree. Sometimes even financing or funding their last year, for example, of studies to help them finish get the diploma, but in the same time create this involvement with the structure, at least for the beginning of their careers. And what we discovered that when we bring someone from the industry, already senior profile, things didn't really work the same when we bring a young talent and invest in him and having him, scaling up his expertise within the structure itself. So this is how we try to do it. Also, for example, for the designers, I think the opportunity and the visibility of Intifada also bring some interest for young illustrators or young photographs to showcase their talent. And we have a lot of stories of people starting some illustration with us, and after have a larger customers for their work coming from other media outlet in Tunisia or abroad. So we invest a lot on the skills. I think is one of I remember from the beginning I had like at least one day a week looking to new talent, looking for new journalists, new developers, new designers, people who can upscale our production and bring new ideas, a new way of doing it.
So I guess in order to create the sort of team that fosters innovation, you really do need to, as you said, invest in skills and also recruit people with a certain kind of sort of mental and creative flexibility, and where they're not yet so set in their ways as to how things have to be produced.
Absolutely.
Now, I guess, yes. So is there a certain example of a story that you did where all of these things have come together? So where you can say this is the best showcase of our journalistic, technical, and creative talent.
Yeah, I have one in mind, not very old story. It's based on a study on the poverty in Tunisia. We get access to raw data from a national study on poverty, funded by the World Bank with the Tunisian Statistics Institute. And we convinced them to give us the raw data from the study. And it was a perfect collaboration between those three departments in a way. That the editorial part, for sure, was to tell the story and to bring this very large amount of data, to give sense to this data and explain why and where and how the poverty is spread through the country. And with the help of the data science team, for example, we come up with some correlation between public services and poverty, for example, which is like a new discovery from the study, and how accesses to public services can impact the poverty rate in a specific region. And there is like a correlation, a perfect correlation between public services, schools, and also we discovered it by putting on the map all those data that there is a big disparity between the coastal areas in Tunisia and the interior areas, the rural areas. We discover it and we visualize it very clearly that there is more investment in public services in the coastal area in some big city compared to more rural interior region, which shows how the state policies are more focused on certain area in the country, which was one of the main causes of the uprising in 2011, this disparity between development between regions. So this story was really one of the examples of how the designers who thought about how we're going to tell these stories visually, the data science team who was trying to help the newsroom understand the data itself and what kind of findings that they can highlight in the story, and assure for the editorial team to tell this story in a way that it can be easily perceivable, understandable, and to serve the purpose from the beginning, is to say that public services are a human right, are the base of any equitable society, and this is why the fact that the state make bad decision in terms of investment, in terms of development, create this kind of situation in the country, for example.
Now, from what I am hearing, the kind of stories that you tend to produce, they're very in depth, they're very informative and investigative, but that also means, they're resource intensive, they're time intensive, and from two sides, right? Like, you're not merely telling a story, but you want to tell it in the most visually appealing way possible, and as such, that requires even more effort. So my next question is about prioritization. How do you make sure that you get those stories out, but also that you uphold the other side of the business, which is getting other organizations to also be able to tell stories in this way using tools you developed?
Yeah, I think for the editorial team, we created some internal processes based on how we produce. The fact that there is other intervenant in the production process makes maybe the journalists understand that there is also the time that they need to tell the story. It's equivalent also to the time that developers need to develop the story. Because at the beginning, for example, we had the editorial team spent 2 months working on a piece, and after they are very waiting where this piece will be produced, how it's going to take so much time for the developer, for example, or for the designers to come up with the story. So this comprehension of the different timelines was one of the challenges, and so created an internal process where we have representative from each department making the connection around bigger story. Some smaller stories who can be very developed, but with our CMS, specific CMS, who give journalists a very wide range of capacity of customization, of introduction of visuals and multimedia content, make that not all the story needed this process, not all the story needed the intervention of a developer or a designer. Some stories can be produced internally in the newsroom without any help. So we try to manage between the workload on the service providers, the lab, the design team, and the intervention in the internal production with Intifada, which sometimes can create some friction because you have other customers, and sometimes the customers are very needy in terms of assistance, in terms of deadlines. And as it's a paid services, we need to prioritize this kind of delivery than sometimes the delivery for the newsroom itself. So this kind of processes that we put in place help us manage in a more an efficient way how those skills are used, and everybody is aware about the workload, about the timeline for the others. With this contact people that we have in each department, it makes the work smoother, and I think that 10 years after the launching of the project, we managed to at least put in place something that is functioning.
I wanted to ask, with regard to, you've seen what it's like to work with other media organizations because they provide these services for them, and you have a good idea about what other outlets apart from yourself need to be innovative. So what have you learned about the needs of media in general in order to stay viable, in order to be innovative based on the work that you've done externally?
I think one of the first media, the kind of media with whom we worked are generally very well skilled in terms of editorial production, most of them. But sometimes they don't maybe experience some kind of specific reporting, how they produce like long forms, how they produce investigative pieces. And then it's easier for us to intervene in this kind of newsrooms. But one of the major observations that we had during these years is that media outlets are very poorly skilled in terms of technical expertise. They most of the time they don't have at least one techie person within the newsroom. They contract external services provider, which create this cultural sometime problem between the newsroom and the service provider. It can be very costly for them, and they are also very limited in terms of possibilities to change on the infrastructure, to update, to be able to follow sometimes some trend or some new technology available for journalists. This is one of the major observations that we have, that there is a lack of investment in terms of technical teams in the organization. Also, most of the organization are run by editorials, by journalists. They left the mainstream media maybe some time to create this new outlet or this new pure player on the internet, and they don't have a lot of management skills. They wasn't aware even about the entrepreneurial side of launching a new media outlet. And I think that bringing some expertise to create or help them at least to find a business model that can serve a specific editorial offer was one of the things that helps a lot of organization, and it was one of the things that they needed at least to solve. And the other difficulties that we also see is the understanding of the audience. Who are the people who are reading the product, how they interact with it, how they think, what they think about it, what kind of content that they need. And we help a lot of organizations doing very basic stuff like forms to ask the audience, some physical gathering, to just have like a focus group from the audience and to understand how they think about the content, what kind of content they needed. And it come up also with this audience measurement tool that come up with all those needs and from other media to understand the audience. And I said audience is audiences, the audience on their website, the audience on the different social media, which everyone has his own specificities, but also how people are talking about the media outlet itself abroad. They are producing podcasts, but they don't have a lot of data from how people are consuming this podcast in the platform. So from this observation, we come up with this tool who can answer at least this kind of question, give them a better way to understand and to make decision based on how audience is consuming their content. So it's this tool is really come up from a specific need from a media outlet, from different media outlet. Another example of how we can benefits also sometimes from ideas that other organizations can have, but they don't have the capacity to achieve or at least to bring to life. It's one partnership that we did with Women in News, which is a Canadian organization related to one IFRA, the big media syndicate, and they wanted to advocate on the sexual harassment in newsroom and to promote a more inclusive reporting in the newsroom in general. And during this reflection, we come up with the idea to create a machine learning based product who will assess, who will play the role of the gender editor in the newsroom, who will take the copy, assess it, and tell you how balanced between men and women characters in the story, if there is some stereotypes, that formulation that can be misleading or interpreted as a stereotype. And we worked together for a year, learning from them about what is a stereotype, some challenges in terms of processing this data, accessing their partner data. And we come up with a tool called Gender Balance Tracker, which now an available tool that our partner is putting in the hand of the media outlet who wants at least to produce a more inclusive, gender balanced content. Now, gender balanced content tracker is a standalone product that any media outlet can use before publishing to assess their copies, but also after publishing to make like a report in how much their content are balanced. And it creates also a good discussion within the newsroom, saying maybe in the story we can have more women experts on this subject, why there is so many people, so many men telling their stories and not enough women, for example. And this is was a great idea for us from the beginning, and our technical team worked on developing this model, this machine learning based model, to understand at least different contexts. The product can work in English, in French, in Arabic, and we are very happy today to implement it also in in-depth, the audience measurement tool. So the media outlet who are using the tool can also have a report on how much their content is balanced and can at least act to make it more balanced.
Now, our time is almost coming to a close, and I just have one more question before I then have to ask you about your 3 best practice tips.
Yeah.
But when you talk about in-depth, your audience measurement tool, I imagine that you've also gained a lot of insight with regard to what audiences who generally consume journalism want to see and hear. So what do you think is the most important thing you've learned from employing the use of such a tool?
Yeah, it's very interesting what we can learn. We have 1 year of data from different contexts, from different media outlets, different size also. And I think the most interesting fact that not necessarily short story are the ones who perform better. We have a lot of examples of very long stories, very long forms, investigative or feature story that can drive a lot of audience compared to like news-based production or very short production, which is sometimes counterintuitive when we say people don't have the time to read, people don't have the time to go deep in stories. But the ones who work the better are the ones who introduce multimedia content, stories, interactive infographics, videos, audios, but also the ones who give you like a summary of what you're going to read in this very long piece, for example. So some of the media outlet experience it, for example, like making some bullet point at the beginning of a long story saying, in this story, we're going to talk about this and this and this. And it's increased the depth of the reading, how long and how deep people goes into the story. we have a very interesting metrics that is available in depth with the depth rate. The depth rate is a rate who show you where people are going through your story, how much of them finished the story, and where people are leaving the story. So this report can give you the possibility to assess why, for example, people are leaving, are quitting or are bouncing very quickly in the story. Sometimes you can change the position of the photo, introduce more subtitles to the video, for example, to make it more appealing. A description on how people can use an infographic. So all those assistance to go through a long story make the long story perform way better. This is the first thing. So this is one of the example. I think one of the major findings that we can give so far.
That's very interesting. And I think it also ties very nicely into our closing segment, which of course is to ask you, what are 3 best practices you would give to other media managers like you listening today?
I think the first one, and I talked a lot about it, is the skills, is to find the right skills in your organization, to invest on skills, because I think this is the pillar of any business model that you want to develop. You have to find the best journalists, the best designers, the best developers, and for them to thrive within the organization and create. It's to come up with this common culture. I will say this is my second most important things I think to think about, is to create an internal culture that will find a place for anybody in the structure and how he contribute to the greater goal. It's important for people to know where they are contributing. As I said, to solve, for example, the idea that the newsroom is not the one who generate the most revenue. It's important for the newsroom to say that they are contributing to the goal to the mission, but also to the brand, to the visibility, and the story that they are producing. They bring us more customers looking for the same kind of production. So the internal culture, and make sure that everybody knows how it's contributing to the greater goal of or the greater mission of a media outlet, I think is a very important point. The other one is the diversification. I think that if we give the example of the big player on the market, the New York Times, the Washington Post, they are media organizations who are already living very well from the advertising, for example, or now from the subscription. But they keep innovating, they keep creating every day new ways to generate revenue, selling products, services, PR services, event organizations, any kind, any revenue stream, any dollars that you can generate from your own activity, it's a dollar forward in independency of the media outlet. So don't hesitate to diversify, but also when you find a spot when you can have an added value, keep digging. Don't stay on the surface of things. For us, when we find that our technological services, our maybe expertise in this field is very needed, we keep developing services and product related to this, because it's important when you find a value, something that is valuable for the other, keep improving it, keep making it better.
All right, so let's see if I can get this together. So your first best practice tip was about skills and investing in the best people, where you can find the best journalists, the best developers, the best creatives, the best engineers. Number 2 is to create an internal culture that would enable each person in your team that would enable each person in your team to find a place for their contribution to the greater goal of the organization. And number 3 has to do with a diversification of never being afraid to find additional revenue streams. And once you find something that appears to bring added value, to keep working to make that tool or idea or contribution better, and to not simply remain at the surface of things. Now, I hope I got that right. And thank you very much. We will have to leave it there. Thank you so much to our guest today, Malek Khadhraoui. He's the Executive Director of AlKhatt and the Publication Director of Intifada of Tunisia. And thank you, dear listeners.
Thank you very much.
Yes, appreciate you joining us today, Malek, and our listeners. So do check out our show notes for more. Till next time on Survive and Thrive.
Thanks for listening to Survive and Thrive, the Media Viability Podcast. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe and make sure to hit like so that other listeners can find us as well. For feedback, send an email to dw-akademie.surviveandthrive@dw.com. You can find all the information in the show notes.